Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I don't know about anybody else, but I, at times in my life, have felt stuck. I've been stuck in a job. I've been stuck in a moment. I've been just stuck in my past. I've been stuck with expectations. I've been stuck in all this stuff. Big parentheses around stuff. But I don't know about anybody else. Sometimes we come across something that inspires us, challenges us, that maybe helps us put into words or maybe thought what we've been thinking about. That happened to me. See, there's this artist out there. Maybe you guys have heard of him. His name's NF. And due to copyright reasons, I can't play a song for you that I would love to play for you. You can go listen to it on your own. I personally listen to it on Amazon Music, but for those that listen to Spotify or other places, it's fine too. You can listen there. The song is called Just Like Me. When I came across this song, the words just really spoke to me, and it really encapsulated my thought of how I've been feeling for a while now. Before you maybe go listen to my show today, can you go listen to that song? The song's called Just Like Me, and it's that opening kind of lyrics. And in fact, here's a little sample of my version of his song. Take a listen. It's strange the way the mind can wander, but also stop to gossip and chat with memories that you and me aren't really fond of. Maybe you're out to find love. Maybe you lost who you was. Or maybe you're just like me and you feel the need to stay in your rut. Because if you left it, you might feel like you are no longer you. It's so impressive the way the mind can play with the truth. It's interesting that nobody can walk in your shoes, but still relate and feel the same. So in a way, I guess we do. You ever wonder what it would be like if the clouds were gone and you could see the light? If the door was open, would you take flight, or would you close the curtains up and stay inside? Take a walk with me, take a risk with me. I'm scared too, and it gets so tempting when you're so empty to disown everything you hold dearly when you know clearly. You've been so buried in your own fairy tale, your soul is tearing bunches of holes in me. I relate too, but in case you've been thinking no one does, here's a great theory. Throw a Hail Mary, let your mind fly to the sunrise. Could be scary, make your faith vary, feel the pain glaring, but the weight carrying ain't in vain. Hear me? And with that, welcome into Season 8. Lucas, take it away.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. It is Season 8. It is finally here. We are on Season 8. I'm super excited about this season, and I'll tell you why for one particular reason. Because I think our next guest really encompasses or encapsulates, that's probably the word I'm seeking, right? He really is the essence of this, and I'm going to tell you why in just a moment. Because for me, when I grew up as a kid, small story, I idolized Michael Jordan. When in fact, I found out that these shoes that he wore, these Jordan shoes, could somehow make you fly. And being from a North Carolina kid myself, born in the Chapel Hill area or the Camp Lejeune, Jacksonville area, I was fascinated by the fact that I could one day fly. And then as I grew up as a young adolescent and found out the history that really the Wright brothers are also that Kitty Hawk area where flight first took off. And so I think our next guest is really going to help us take flight in this next little duration that we're in this next season. So help me welcome him in. He, of course, is a professional life transformation coach. He's going to break that all down for us, I'm sure. He is, of course, best known for his days as the podcast answer man. Where was he when I started? Why didn't I know about this guy when I started? I could have had all my questions answered all in one fell swoop. He, of course, he believes he's been put on this earth to not only entertain, but to educate, to encourage, and, of course, inspire other people. I don't know about anybody else. Like, I'm ready to get inspired. I'm ready to get encouraged. I'm ready maybe even to get entertained. And of course, let's get some education. Let's get our hat on. Ready? So here we go. Help me welcome him in. The world may be famous, Cliff Ravenscraft. Cliff, how are you today?
Neil, I have never been. That's just how awesome life is.
Well, I always try to give that rock star welcome, right? We got the Dyson out. We rolled out the red carpet for you. We even vacuumed it. We got that now.
Dude, the paparazzi been shooting photos everywhere. It's something. I'm honored to be here, Neil.
Well, it is an honor to sit with you. I know you have sat with a number of my friends through the podcast community, and super excited that you gave us some moments today to kind of talk about this. If the shoe fits, why are we still wearing it kind of idea? And so that's kind of what we're talking about. So before we get too far down the road, we got to talk about what shoes you're in today. So Cliff, help me if you would. What size shoes do you wear?
Have no idea. But if I had to guess, somewhere around 9.5. It just depends.
How do you, hold on a second. How do you not know what size shoes you wear?
I buy shoes about once every 18 months, and I basically wear shoes until they have holes in them. And when I go to buy new shoes, sometimes I'll put on like a 9 and it's like, ow, that crouches my toe. And sometimes I'll put a 9.5 on and it's fine. But sometimes I'll put on a 9.5 and it's like, it's like there's room to grow. If I had like 3 more inches of toe, I could fill up the shoe maybe. So I go down to a 9. So maybe it sometimes depends on the shoe. I might be an 8.5. Who knows? I keep just putting on shoes.
You just keep trying them on until they fit, right?
I pull 3 or 4 pairs off, somewhere between 8.5 and 9.5.
All right.
And I put each of them on until I find the one that feels good, and I take that home. And then when I actually take the one home that feels good, Neil, I just don't bother to look to see what size it was. That's the answer to the question.
Love it. Love it a lot. By the way, that's the best guide description of shoes I've had. So you get a prize for that. So there we go. It's in the mail. Just check your mailbox now. It might look like an Amazon box, but just go ahead and open it anyways. It's from us. But I love the fact also, and I don't know why I love this, maybe because I do know why. So I have this map that sits above me, and I was telling you this kind of pre-show that every time I sit with somebody, I put a pin in where they're from. And so I get excited when I get to go into a new state. And so today we get to do that, right? Because you're in that Kentucky. We were having some debate over how you pronounce your city. So hopefully I still do it right. Hebron, Kentucky, right?
Yes, that's good enough. If you were here, they would correct you and tell it's Hebron, Kentucky. But that's only because it is Kentucky. Anywhere else in the world, if you actually saw the name of our city, they would tell you it's Hebron. So I'm sorry that I confused you by giving you both pronunciations, but you probably picked up and landed on the correct pronunciation, except for that if you were here. It's kind of like if you go to New York City. Have you ever been to New York City and been on the subway?
I have not, but if you want to take me there, I'm good with that.
You get on the subway and they'll say, next stop, Houston Street, but it's actually Houston. But no, it's Houston. Okay, fine, whatever.
I'm going to tell my buddy in Houston then that lives in the Houston area that he now lives in Houston. So I'm going to tell him that from now on. So thank you, Sean McCoy. You now live in Houston, not Houston. So don't get me confused anymore. So speaking of being in Kentucky and being out in that, what is it, blue state? You're kind of the Kentucky Wildcats are out there, which I'm not a huge fan of, just for the record. But if we were going to come out and hang out with you for a day, do a day in the life of Cliff, where would you take us and what would we go and do?
Well, we'd wake up between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning when Father comes to nudge you and say, hey, it's time to get out of bed. We'd hang out in my studio for probably 3 to 5, maybe up to 7 hours studying various scriptures and books, and maybe spend somewhere between 20 minutes to an hour and a half in meditation. Then we would take a nap and pretty much just crash for probably 60 to 90 minutes. And then we'd probably go up to my kitchen. So depending on the commute, there's sometimes a little bit of, what do you call that? There's a little bit of...
is it traffic? Maybe a roundabout?
Traffic, yeah.
Okay, traffic. Yeah, traffic.
Okay. Sometimes there's a little bit of congestion there, right around the second landing in the house. So sometimes the dog needs to go out, and so I might have to wait to get into the kitchen. But anyway, so I go into the kitchen, fix myself a little breakfast. Then I will come all the way back downstairs and I will start doing some work until it's lunchtime. And then I'll go upstairs and then I'll have lunch and then I'll come downstairs. Day in the life of Cliff, it looks a lot like that.
That sounds intriguing. Like there's so many things I want to dissect there, but we'll press forward. So thanks for giving us that. I really, because for me, I really feel like in order to understand, obviously, the shoes that we're in, we got to understand the wearer of said shoes to kind of get a little more rounded perspective of who you are. So getting into this exciting thing, because I am excited. First off, full disclosure, I think I've seen, and this is high, maybe a dozen, maybe 24 episodes of the TV show Lost. My wife, however, I think she was pretty faithful. She watched it from kind of start to finish. I kind of would jump in at times. But here's the wacky part. My wife loves that show for the most part. She really likes it. It was one of her faves, I think. So she'll correct me later when she hears this. But I have always been a big fan of the movie Castaway. Tom Hanks, right? He gets stranded on this deserted island. He's a FedEx worker, just to ruin the movie for anyone that hasn't seen it, which how have you not seen Castaway? I don't know, but maybe where have you been? I'm not sure. But anyway, so he gets stranded on this island because he's a FedEx worker, plane crashes, and he's on this island for 4 years. What I didn't know in my research of getting ready for you today, that the creators of Lost actually kind of not took, but kind of liked the idea of Castaway and kind of worked it into Lost. Did you know that, by the way?
No.
Have you seen Castaway?
Idea. I have.
Okay, just checking. I was like, this is really going to fall flat as a podcast host if this doesn't work right. So I don't know. So I'm curious about this question. If you were ever to be stuck on a deserted island like Lost or maybe even Castaway, right? What would be the hardest part for you about being stuck on that deserted island?
Well, first of all, assuming that it's a deserted island, I would want to be on one of those islands where there are no snakes. So I think that would be cool. What would be the most what's the question? The most challenging?
Yeah, challenging or hardest, whichever word you like there, whichever is easier for you.
I guess the fact that I have almost no ability to farm or to raise plants and keep them alive. And I've never actually, slaughtered an animal and cleaned it and cooked food for myself like that. So probably figuring out how the heck I'm going to eat, I'd probably just need to pray and just trust God to rain manna down from heaven.
Well, and that's why I think I like that movie Castaway so much. By the way, I was laughing at all of that. People couldn't hear me because I muted my mic, but I was laughing at all that because I'm right there with you. Like, these hands are not made. I'm holding up my hands because we're on a Zoom, but these hands are not made for manual labor. Like, I'm a computer guy, kind of like you, probably a little bit of tech guy, in me. And so the thought of killing something, cleaning it, all that, man, I would probably starve unless manna again fell from heaven. But in that movie with Tom Hanks, he gets really ingenious, right? He figures stuff out. I like to think that maybe I would be able to figure that out. Again, you're there for 4 years, so you got time to figure stuff out. With that, I was also wondering about this. Have you ever had this moment, and I'm sure maybe you have, maybe you haven't, I don't know, but has there ever been a moment in your life that you really felt stuck? Like you just couldn't go anywhere? Maybe you were in that quicksand or that kind of cement block was just, maybe strapped to your feet and you just couldn't go anywhere? And if so, could you maybe walk us through that and describe that moment for us?
I'm trying to think of whether or not I've actually had the thought that I was stuck. And the answer to that question is no. Have I ever felt, though, that my feet were in quicksand? Using that analogy or metaphor, I need to go and look up what's the difference between an analogy and a metaphor? Because I suppose there is a difference, because some people say that's a great metaphor. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was telling an analogy. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, when you find that out, will you let me know too? Because I struggle with that as well.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put that on my list of things to do, which I don't actually keep to-do lists. So we'll just put it on a list and then forget it. And next time it comes up, I'll say, man, I still need to do that, don't I? So to tell you, have there been times where I felt like my feet were, where I wasn't getting enough traction, where it seems like I was making a lot of effort to move forward, but yet it's not that I was stuck, because I don't think I think this entire world is all about motion. We're always moving. And even if we're moving backwards, we're not stuck. We're never stuck in the same place. So I just have this feeling that no, there's never been a time that I'm stuck, but there have been times where I feel like I should, with all the effort and energy that I'm putting in right now, I should be closer to my desired outcome. And in each of those circumstances, every single time, it just puts me into a contemplative mindset of what's going on here. Why am I not able to see the result that I'm going after? Why is this such a struggle? What is there that's going on? What do I need to learn? And for me, every single time when I get into a place where I feel like I'm just not getting the traction, I'm not actually making the progress, and it's for me to even move even a millimeter. It just like, man, this seems to be taking a lot of my life force. Why is this? Usually in every single one of those situations, there's always been a lesson for me to learn. There's always been a powerful thing to say, listen, there's something going on inside of you, whether it's a limiting belief that you need to discover and you need to eliminate. Because if you continue to go through life with this limiting belief unchecked, believing it to be true, then it's going to hinder you from the next opportunities that I'm bringing your way. And when I say I'm bringing your way, that's the Father speaking to me. That's God saying, Cliff, I have a path for you. I have plans for you, plans for a hope to prosper you. There's a mission, there's a purpose, and I allow you to experience things. And I'm not saying that God is saying that he brings challenges into my life, but he certainly is not caught off guard when I'm faced with said challenges. When a challenge comes up, I have this opportunity. I can either get really down in the dumps. I can start self-condemning myself. I could start beating myself up. Oh man, and ask myself really stupid questions. Man, why does this always happen to me? Why do I always screw things up? By the way, I used to ask those questions, and that's when, again, I wasn't stuck, but I would actually find myself sliding backwards. I'd find myself maybe sinking in that quicksand. But every single time I stop and say, listen, you know what? I'm in quicksand here. And every time I ask lousy questions, I get lousy responses that bring me further down. But I want to get out of this pit, and I know that I can. So what is going to get me out of this? And it's usually a limiting belief. What's caused me to be here? How am I perceiving this in an incorrect way? Or what is there for me to learn? How can I grow? And sometimes it's like, listen, what you've been pursuing is not for you. You've been conditioned to think that success equals this. You've been conditioned to go after this. This is what everybody tells you success is. And you've been going down this road really hard. And I've allowed you to step into this quicksand, to slow your roll, because you were going so far ahead of me that you weren't able to hear my voice. So I'm slowing you down, and I want to speak to you. Now you can sit there and try to flap your feet and raise your hands and all this other stuff, dig your way out. But I tell you right now, the more you do that, you're gonna slide further into the quicksand. But if you'll just stop for a minute and hear me speak to you, I'll tell you what's going on. And when you're ready, I'll drop a rope and I'll pull you right out. Now, whether or not you'll continue to go in that direction will depend on what you've learned after I've shared with you what I want to share. So, Neil, one of the things that I've learned, and I've learned this lesson recently, everything in life is a relationship. All right. We have relationships with people and we understand relationships with people, but everything in life is relationships. So, for example, I don't know where you're at, but it's cold outside.
I'm in Oregon. Yeah, it's still chilly. I got a blanket on today. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I do have a blanket on today.
So right now, here's what I will tell you. It is 25 degrees outside. All right. And I will probably go walk my dog later today. I'm wearing shorts and a workout t-shirt. All right. I will not go out. I will not wear a jacket because I have no resistance of what is. So I will walk outside and I will not say to myself, oh gosh, it's so freaking cold. Will you go potty to my dog? Instead, I'm going to say, you know what? It's 25 degrees out here. This little app says it feels like it's 13. So if I have shorts and a t-shirt on and no coat and I walk outside, this is what that feels like. You see, and that's a relationship. See, I have a relationship with the weather, and I have a relationship where I don't resist what the weather is. I accept it. I acknowledge it. I become consciously aware that this is what the weather is. I chose not to have a grievance with it. So everything in life, you can have a grievance or you can choose a miracle. And a grievance is like, I'm going to resist it. I'm going to fight it. I don't like it. I'm going to give judgment. I'm going to fight for my right. This is a violation of my expectations. See, if I go outside, it's like, man, it's sunny outside. I'm going to walk outside and I'm going to expect to be comfortable by the warm rays of the sun. And I walk outside and it's 25 and it feels like 14, but my expectation was that it's going to feel like 48. All of a sudden now, because I had expectations up here, I now have a grievance because it's not what I expected. Therefore, it's so freaking cold. It's not so freaking cold. Freaking cold compared to what? But if I lived in Alaska, or somewhere up there in the north, and it's normally 34 degrees below zero Fahrenheit, I'll tell you what, those people be swimming if it was 25 degrees outside. You know what I'm saying?
They're Canadians. They do things a little differently. But no, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I love that perspective shift, right? Because again, what I hear you saying in that is you have to set the expectation for yourself. You really have to set yourself up for this expectation that there's so many times, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but there's so many times I set an expectation maybe for someone or a relationship, and then disappointment then comes around, and then discontentment comes around, and then disconnection comes around rather than connection. So if I'm wrong on that, obviously you can of course correct me, but I did have another thought I wanted to ask you about.
Well, I'll let you ask that next thought, but let me just say this. Yes, we are responsible for setting our expectations. And I'm all for having expectations, having a clear vision of what you want in life. I'm all for that. Matter of fact, without vision, the people will perish. Okay. So I'm all for having expectations. Here's the interesting thing. I have learned recently to no longer be attached to my expectations being met. That's where suffering comes from. See, there's nothing wrong with having an expectation that it's sunny outside and it's just like blinding, awesome rays of yellow gold glory from heaven coming from the skies. Wow. And there's nothing wrong with having the expectation that I'm going to walk outside and it's 43 degrees. But suffering only happens when I walk outside and it's 25, feels like 13 with wind chill, and I resist what is. I get upset. Suffering comes only when I am attached to what I wanted for my peace, love, and happiness. And what I'm saying is, while I hope for the best, I accept whatever is, knowing that whatever is always works out in the end.
That's the key, I think, that I missed, was accepting the what is. And that's mind-blowing. Like, I have to keep my hat on because I feel like that win that you just blew my way all the way from Kentucky out to Oregon almost knocked my hat off. So, Cliff, I love that. I love that perspective. And again, I love that mindset shift. For me, at least, it's been one today. I know you're a big fan of Lost, right? Is that accurate to say?
I was a big fan of Lost for 6 years, all the way up until about 10 minutes after the finale. And then I was a little let down.
Then you're a little let down. Okay, fair enough.
Seriously though, I was a huge fan of the TV show Lost. My wife introduced me to it, and the television show quite literally changed my life.
Yeah,
because it introduced me to the world of podcasting. And if it wasn't for the TV show Lost, I would have never podcasted about the TV show Lost. And of course, if I didn't podcast about the TV show Lost, I don't know that I would have ever podcasted about anything. And if I didn't podcast about anything, I would have never left my career as an insurance agent. And I can't imagine what life would be like if I still worked as an insurance agent.
I can't picture you as an insurance agent, by the way. I did know that about you, and I still am trying to wrap my brain around that. I'm like, so for me, again, I don't know a ton about Lost, so we're not going to play Lost trivia because I would get stomped, I'm sure. I'm wondering, is there 3 lessons that you learned about your life maybe during Lost or that you gained from Lost? And it kind of sounds like you did, but maybe more succinctly what those 3 were.
Well, number one, my life's purpose and mission in the world became more clear. Definitely. So first of all, what I will tell you, what I mean by that is that just by putting my voice out into the world through an audio podcast, I began to receive emails from all over the world, people saying, Cliff, oh my gosh, I can't begin to tell you how thankful I am I discovered your podcast. I've been listening to you, and my wife was podcasting with me. I've been listening to you and your wife, and I just love I love the inside information that you research and you bring to the show. And I mean, and there's a bunch of other podcasts that do that as well, and you guys do it great. I mean, you're right up there as the top of the top, but there's just something about your voice And I'm always encouraged. Doesn't matter where I am, what's going on in my life. But man, as soon as I hit play on your podcast, as soon as I hear your voice, there's a shift inside of me. And I don't know what it is, but I just tune in to hear you talk. You could talk about anything and I would listen. And I got that feedback over and over and over again. Let me ask you,
I was just going to say, you have tons of letters and boxes and just world renowned. I mean, just letters kept cascading into you guys that, you know, that your show about loss was affecting so many people in such a dramatic way, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, exactly. So they were emailing us by the thousands in a month. I have over 1,000 different postcards, thank you letters, and physical handwritten letters. 3 of the physical letters behind me are handwritten notes that explained why somebody, as a result of listening to our podcast content, chose not to commit suicide. So what for me, the number one thing is like, I knew from the time I was 18 years old, really, and maybe even sooner than that I wanted to devote my life to be in service of God, that I was called to be in ministry and service to others. And, you know, I thought for a long time when I was, in 1996, right after I got married, I think I was probably about 22 or something then. And I thought then that's when it was made official. I went and talked to my pastor. The church board says, yep, we confirm you're called to full-time ministry. And I began studying to be a pastor. And I walked all the way down to the ordination path. But at that same time, right as I began studying for quote unquote official ministry, that's when I started working in the family run insurance agency. And so when I told my mom and dad, I'll come work for the insurance agency, but if I'm ever offered an opportunity to go full-time into ministry, I'm leaving. And they said, okay, we'll give you our blessing to leave the insurance career if that's ever an option for you. And I got to the place where I realized, man, my greatest ministry right now is what I'm doing in insurance. I literally, I wrote 30 to 50 policies per month. And I spent 12 years in insurance. And I sat across the table with people. I paid off their cars, bought them new cars with the insurance money that was provided from the policies. I helped people rebuild their homes, put them in hotels during tornadoes, all of this stuff. And I literally have handed checks for hundreds of thousands of dollars to a spouse who just lost her husband, who was a guy who maybe 2 or 3 years ago sat across my table and says, I don't need insurance.
The thought-provoking thing for me is that you had that mindset even back then to say, listen, what legacy are you going to leave behind if you leave this world, right? Because that's what I think of life insurance is. It's this kind of secure nest egg financially that you can bless somebody with upon your death, right? I mean, as weird and morbid as that sounds, am I inaccurate in that?
Well, I've never been a person who thinks about legacy, but I think of somebody but I've always thought about it as responsibility. What are commitments?
Responsibility then. Yeah.
So for me, what I think of is as a husband, I had, my values were such that when I get married, I'm saying, listen, and these are old values and stuff like that. And I know some people are like, listen, I'm a woman. I don't need no man to provide for me. That's fine. But for me, my upbringing, my thing in this world, my values were that I asked my wife, Stephanie, to marry me. And what I said is, I am committing to you that I will provide for you. I will provide safety for you in sickness and health. I will be here to serve you. And for me, my responsibility was to provide financially and to provide security as much as within my ability. And I realized that many things could happen that could hinder my ability to keep that commitment. And so that's why I purchased disability income insurance for any kind of event that might happen that keeps me from providing income, but I'm still alive. And that's why I bought life insurance, so that in the event of my death, that my wife wouldn't be struggling for financial commitments to repay other people based upon my assumption that I was going to continue to be alive and produce income. And so it's basically for me is, listen, I want to live in alignment with the values of of commitment to staying true to my word. If I'm saying, hey, I want to take out a loan or a mortgage for my house, and I'm making a promise to you that if you give me this mortgage and allow me to pay you over the next 20 or 30 years, I promise you this money will come back to you. I promise the repayment of this. Now, I make that promise just in the same way I make my promise in sickness or in death to my wife. I want to make that same kind of commitment to the other things. And if I'm going to have a child, what do I want to provide for that child? I want to provide health insurance. I want to provide a roof over their heads. I want to provide for if I think and believe that education is a part of their path. Do I want to provide that? Whatever the values are, that's what it's. So for me, it's not so much as leaving a legacy and a financial gift as much as it is to living up to my values and my commitments, even in the absence of my physical health while I'm still here on this earth in my body, or if I actually have to be called up to leave this earth altogether.
That's beautiful, by the way. I love that. I love that idea. And again, I feel like my mind got shifted a little bit there. Again, the hopefully the colors are coming in more alignment as I get to know more of this gentleman that we're sitting with, Cliff, today. So, Cliff, I know you have said publicly, and at first you were maybe a little scared, maybe there was some reservation, but you have publicly said one day you envision packing a stadium full of people and sharing your wisdom, sharing what you feel God has laid on your heart about your purpose and your mission in life and trying to free people, and to me, that is so profound and so exciting. And so I often like to end my show with this kind of question. So we're going to end with this question, but then I want to play a game with you if you're open to playing a game with us.
Sure.
Okay. So I did some research. By the way, I don't know if you've ever been to Ann Arbor. Have you in all your journeys and travels?
Never.
Do you know what is in Ann Arbor, Michigan?
I do not.
Okay, well, I'm going to help you. So in Ann Arbor, Michigan, there's this place they call it the Big House, and it's actually where the University of Michigan plays their football games. And they estimate the seating capacity, the largest crowd they've ever had on hand in the Big House in Ann Arbor, Michigan, as 113,065 people. Now, I don't know if you're a sports fan or not. We didn't get far down that road, but I'm imagining just for a second, for whatever reason, God has blessed me with an opportunity to be the organizer of the Cliff Ravenscraft coming to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And somehow I get to be the organizer, and I'm standing right next to you at the 50-yard line. I'm like, as I'm looking out at the crowd, and we kind of do like a panoramic, whatever view, and I'm standing there next to you because we're friends now. Maybe we're even best friends. Maybe we have bracelets and everything that prove that we're best friends. I don't know. But I'm standing next to you on that stage, and I'm about ready to hand you the microphone, and I say to you, Cliff, can you, imagine that we're here finally? Because again, we're best friends, so we maybe helped each other in this process to get there. But I'm also wondering, what are you going to say to the crowd in this moment?
So the first question I would say to you is, I've been here for the last, it depends on when this happens. I've been here for the last 5 years, or I've been here for the last 10 years. I've been here.
So
for
however long the time
years.
frame is, you would declare that time frame. Okay.
Do I believe that we're finally here? I've been on this stage many, 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 many times is the first thing I would say to you. The second thing that I would, so the question is, what am I going to say to the audience?
Yeah, we finally have this packed stadium that you've wanted for, at least, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you've wanted this for a long time. You've wanted that kind of Tony Robbins kind of like monumental moment where you get this capacity crowd, stadium full of people. Here's your chance. Here's your moment. What are you going to say?
We're going to spend the next day and a half together in this stadium answering the two most important questions you'll ever answer in your life. Who am I and why am I here? And once you discover your true identity, you'll finally realize, and you're going to walk out of here with a complete understanding how to completely rid your life of anxiety, fear, worry, self-doubt, self-condemnation, and you will be equipped to live a life of an abundance of peace, love, and joy, regardless of any circumstance in your life, regardless of how much money there is in your bank account, or whether or not you owe the IRS $300,000 because your business partner embezzled from you. It doesn't matter. No external circumstance in this material world will ever be able to rob you of an ounce, not even an ounce of your peace, love, and joy, that it flows to you in an abundance. And you're going to recognize before we leave this stadium that this has been your birthright your entire life. And you've been lied to. And we are about ready to begin exposing all of those lies.
Wow. I almost want to go to Ann Arbor, rent a stadium, pack it out, and hand you that microphone, because I just think that has been at least my problem, and maybe for so many others who have been in this moment of feeling like stuck, that they've been in this cage. One of my favorite movies of all time too is Shawshank Redemption, and there's a line in there, and I always mess it up, but basically some birds aren't meant to be caged, their feathers are just too bright. And when we realize it was a sin to lock them up, our heart does rejoice once they've left our cold, drab world that we're in. And for me, I guess that's why I was so excited to sit with you, is because I wanted for a moment, and maybe more than a moment, really try to understand, here's a man that I've seen from a distance and heard about, but really never understood how he became free. And so to me, that was the kind of fascination, if you will, with you and what you're about. And that's why even in Clubhouse, I would try to get as close as I could to the rooms with you, because I felt like if I was in the room, I would be able to walk away, and I have every time walked away with something of value. And to me, I felt like you really did that today. So thanks for that. So we're going to play our game. This is our game like I like to call Senseless. So this is my amazing North Carolina Cup. I'm a huge Tar Heels fan. Cliff, if you didn't know that, now you know. And so I always like to end the show with this just kind of fun game. So there is a die in here. I always say dice, but there's a die in here. So I'm going to roll because you're not in Oregon. So I'm going to roll for you. Is that okay that I roll for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, just checking. And so here we go. You got this number here, so I'm showing it to you so you can hopefully tell everyone at home that I didn't cheat.
It's the number 5.
Perfect. It is backwards. Sorry about that. So number 5 is this. What is your favorite thing to taste?
What is my favorite? Bacon.
Boy, you were going to think and then just bacon just popped out of your mouth?
Bacon.
Why bacon?
I just love, there's just something about bacon. I love the savory taste of it. I love the little meaty chunk of the actual meat. I love the texture of the fat that dissolves in your mouth. It is just, and if you get it just right, there's the crunch. Bacon. Well, you're listening to a podcast. So one thing I would say is just go and find a podcast that I've produced. I've produced over 40, or actually 40 of them. I'm thinking about launching 21 shows in 2021. So I'll take it up to 60 some odd shows. But anyway, the Cliff Ravenscraft show is probably the one show that I would recommend. Although I will tell you that your audience will likely struggle with the most recent podcast episode. Maybe it's episode 655. It's titled "He Desires That We Would Be One," and it's a podcast episode that I did. It's a 90-minute conversation recorded off of Clubhouse between myself, one other Christian, a Sikh from India, a Muslim from the Netherlands, and a spiritual New Age woo-woo woman, and we all explain our own unique path to experiencing oneness with God. And if you can get over the difference in the language that we use to describe it, we all have the exact same experience. And if you listen to the entire conversation, you will come away with that, with an understanding that these 5 individuals, including myself in that conversation, are just as one as any Bible study group with a group of Christians I've ever been in. An absolute love and respect and admiration for one another, and an absolute desire to see nothing but the best in each other. And there is no doubt in my mind that we are all children of God. So that right there would be the number one. Matter of fact, it's the first episode I've produced for the Cliff Ravenscraft show in 2021. And I made a commitment. I will only produce content when I absolutely feel inspired to do so. And if that was the only episode I produced this year, it'd be cool.
I saw that, and in full disclosure, I haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, but I intend to. I actually wanted to listen to it before we met today. Thanks through Eric Nevins, actually, I was able to sit with, at the end of our season 5 series, where we were talking about the search. and he connected me with some Muslim ladies. They actually have a podcast called Momming While Muslim. And for me, we did a lot of pre-show stuff, and they said, you can ask us whatever you want. We will answer it. Nothing's off limits. We will be completely, obviously honest and forthcoming and all that. And to me, that is still one of my favorite. Like, I get asked from time to time, I'm not on probably as many shows as you are as a guest, but from time to time when I have been able to be a guest, I'm always asked like, hey Neil, what's your favorite show? What should someone go listen to? And that's one that I often do quote, because it was such a shift for me in my view of Muslims. And it was just incredible. So yeah, I highly recommend. I'm going to go listen to it as well. Hopefully others will do the same. So Cliff, again, just man, thank you. Can I just say that again? I feel like maybe I haven't said that enough with you, but I really do want to say thank you. Thank you for giving me a few moments today.
My pleasure. It's literally my honor. And I really appreciate that you have created a space where you've assembled this community that listens to your podcast. And the fact that you've invited me to be a guest on your show, I consider it to be an honor. So thank you so much for doing the hard work to cultivate such an incredible relationship with a community of people and trusting me with your audience.
Absolutely. And guys and gals alike, as we wrap up today, I just want to ask you just one question before we get out of here. And that's this: what in your life has you stuck right now? Think about that for a second. Maybe it is your finances. Maybe it is the fact that you're like, after Cliff was talking about life insurance, you're like, wait a second, do I have life insurance? Do I need to call my agent right now? Does my kid have life insurance? Does my wife have life insurance? And so I'm going to ask you this question: who are you truly insured with? Because like Cliff said, it's not about leaving the legacy. It's about fulfilling some obligations, for better or for worse, that you're going to take care of your family. And I'm just going to ask you right now, how you doing on that? Only you can really answer that question. And if you'd like to let me know that question, of course, I would love to know. You can, of course, connect with me through opspodcast.com. Click that connections tab or click on the voicemail there. You can leave a voicemail straight from our site. And I would love to know what you think on that. And I just wanted to leave you with this last thought. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.